p.m. Central African Time. A very good afternoon to you and welcome to this Thursday edition's Market View edition. We get into an interesting episode of Market View today as we want to look at what is happening around our commerce, industry and trade landscape. We are seeing that it is beginning to regain its footing in the region. That is the SADC region, particularly in Mozambique, after facing considerable challenges due to the unrest that we saw in Mozambique. There was, those disputed elections of our President Daniel Chapo. Local businesses are showing renewed hope for recovery. We want to tap into that by looking at some of our leading stories in our business news today. That is going to be one of the big stories there. But also, Honorable Minister of Commerce, Industry and Trade, Manqoba Khumalo, elaborates on the resilience of our trade routes. We do know that Eswatini has some of the best routes in the SADC industry. So we want to, listen to the resilience of that and why they are important, the proactive measures that are being taken by our government to alleviate the situation that is at hand, the impacts of the conflict on the business industry. That is a big topic that we want to navigate today. But we also get into our Enterprise Watch as we go further into our segment today. We want to delve into the troubling decline that we are currently experiencing of the brass and rubber industry, a lucrative and very, very important industry when it comes to sustaining economies in terms of infrastructure development unique to every country. There's a significant challenge there that is facing that landscape despite having served international markets for decades. We explore what is happening around that particular story, and finally we decode the market rates of the day with our economist Sanne Lesbia, who is going to join us virtually, taking us from Wall Street to the Kingdom of Eswatini, as well as other markets, informing you what that would mean in terms of how you invest your monies. Let's start the show by looking at the business news that matter today. As things are slowly getting back to normal in Mozambique, there is hope that local companies using routes in that country will be back in business. Mozambique has been battling unrest after a disputed election of newly sworn-in President Daniel Chapo. And the Minister for Commerce, Industry and Trade, Honorable Manqoba Khumalo, says the impact of the conflict has been felt in the business industry of the Kingdom of Eswatini.
It has been very disruptive. The disruption has emanated from borders not being able to operate, roads, being manned by hooligans or protesters, as it were, who would then do harm to our trucks and truck drivers, etc. Informal traders that normally go to Mozambique to get their supplies for trade purposes or to send their supplies to Mozambique have been disrupted. We export a number of key commodities, by the way, through Mozambique. For example, sugar. Our primary route for exporting sugar to the EU is Mozambique. And other, firms are also, using Mozambique because it is a shorter distance and a relatively more efficient port. So it has been a huge impact. But what has happened, though, is in the short term, companies have figured out alternative routes whilst waiting for the Mozambican situation to normalize. But what we're hearing now is that things are getting back to normal gradually.
The success rate of the cooperatives in the country currently stands at 70%. This was said by the Commissioner of Cooperatives at the Ministry of Commerce, Industry and Trade, Russell Nxumalo, during the launch of the Interstate Transport Association that is called Siasitana Multipurpose Cooperative. It was held in Manzini.
The interim chairperson of the cooperative, Dumisani Maphanga, says most members of the Interstate Transport Association are now old and can't access loans in banks. He says this poses a challenge for them as they struggle with operating costs. On the issue of cooperatives failing because of poor governance, he said they have been well sensitized on running a cooperative, adding that some of their members had professional careers before retirement.
Lokusenda ukuthi sisukumise le cooperative lena kakhulu ngokuthi bantu abaningi bale association, the Interstate Transport Association sebadzala. Lokwa kwadzala bawo babuka ukuthi abasasitaka nasemabhange emabhange nge-age kwanza ukuthi seba netinkinga nge-age thola ukuthi abasaba finance. So bathi ke yini indlela lengasita lenye babuka ukuthi indlela lengasita ngile cooperative.
The Commissioner of the Cooperatives at the Ministry of Commerce, Industry and Trade, Russell Nxumalo, applauded the association, stating that 70% of cooperatives become successful in the country.
As you know, public transport most of the time has a number of issues. There are frequent breakdowns, and with this cooperative, they'll be able to access finance so that their operations are not hampered in any way. We have increased our monitoring. We've been lacking in terms of monitoring, but as an office, we've increased monitoring. We are on the ground, and we've actually even incorporated FSRA into our operations to safeguard the public's money in cooperatives.
The interim chairperson says the Interstate Transport Association currently has 90 members. For Market View, Nelson Dlangamandla, Vominkosi Nzinisa, Babane.
And those were our business news this afternoon. We go for a net break. We come back. We want to look at what is happening around the brass and rubber industry, which is currently seeing a major decline in sales in the past 5 years.
Be sure to catch Business Watch every Wednesday between 2 p.m. to 3 p.m, where we feature the latest updates on business news, market trends, and exclusive interviews with industry leaders, as well as insights on emerging small and medium enterprises in the commercial sector. Business Watch, your business leader.
This is Subsidy, the game show where we talk about government-sponsored financial incentives. Our first question: which of these sectors benefits from government subsidies? Agriculture, education, transportation, or all of the above?
Oh, that's easy.
The answer is all of the above.
He's right, but there's more to the story. Sometimes governments support their people and businesses through a policy tool that brings down prices called subsidies. They do this to create long-term benefits for the economy or to help pay for things that the market isn't providing but that people cannot live without. Subsidies can also be a helpful tool when an economy is hit by crisis. Let me show you what I mean. Take housing. Everyone needs a roof over their head. Unfortunately, not everyone can afford it. But governments can help by subsidizing rent for poorer citizens or building more low-cost homes. Education subsidies, like discounted tuition or free textbooks, can make schooling affordable for more people. As a result, people are more skilled and can get better jobs. Even something as small as bringing down the cost of public transportation yields benefits for the environment. Not to mention, it gives people more options about where they can live and work. But not all subsidies are helpful. Some have downsides. Oh, this is me.
Doors open.
Take a look at one of the most common subsidies. Energy. In a lot of countries, fuel subsidies can mean consumers are paying less for fuel than it actually costs to produce. And that doesn't even reflect the environmental cost. Look at coal. Burning coal produces electricity, but it also pumps carbon into the air, which causes pollution and contributes to climate change. If the price hike on coal doesn't include these environmental costs, companies will always choose cheap, subsidized coal over more expensive clean energy sources. On the flip side, when governments subsidize green energy sources, they make the clean choice the more affordable option. At the IMF, we support these types of reforms that get energy prices right and tax pollution, especially when the added revenue goes towards programs that can help the poor. Basically, making sure that subsidies do what's best for people, the economy, and Mother Earth.
Eswatini TV has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Eswatini Communications Commission. We are committed to reporting news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that does not amount to hate speech or the description of gratuitous violence or explicit sex. For any complaints of our programming, please contact us on 2411-9600 or email info@eswatinitv.co.sz. You can also contact the Eswatini Communications Commission on 2406-7000 or write a letter to ECCOM on PO Box 7811 Mbabane. Email address is info@ecom.org.sz.
Welcome back. You're still watching Market View. This is the Thursday edition. The brass and rubber industry has seen a major decline in sales in the past 5 years, despite exporting to overseas companies. Exipro Swaziland, a company that has been in the business for 30 years, has stated that it has laid off about 160 staff members over the years, leaving them with just 40 workers. The managing director, Gavin Adamson, talks to business journalist Nelson Langamandla to explain some of the challenges that are faced by this once thriving industry.
Mr. Adamson, welcome to the show. Thank you for agreeing to speak to us. We just want to understand how big is the rubber and brass industry in the country?
So both in Eswatini and in the region, it is declining and shrinking. We are losing jobs year by year, and the industry is becoming as if it's going to be non-existent in a couple of years. If all the statistics tell us that the manufacturing sector in our region should be contributing more to the GDP, but it's shrinking each year. So our personal story is we've shrunk hugely in the years we've been here. And that is a problem. But we are very concerned about the future, very, very concerned about the future of manufacturing in our region. And we've traveled extensively in our region to neighboring countries, to the kingdom. And the problems are not unique to Eswatini. The problems are similar in South Africa and in Lesotho and in Botswana and in Zimbabwe and in Mozambique and in Angola and in Zambia, and it goes. So yes, it is a major concern that the sector is not progressing. I've talked to the problem. I've been involved with many different entities, and all of the entities that I talk to do not understand what a value chain is, and do not understand that if there's no factory producing a product in a given area, there's no jobs in that given area. So we've become economies in our region of consumers, where the first thing that comes to mind for anybody wanting to enter into business is, where can I buy this in somewhere else in the world for the cheapest, and where can I sell it? Not how can I make it locally. So we do not have that mindset, and that's the problem. So we've been manufacturing for 30 years. And I think the reason that our manufacturing of hardware items, and when I talk of hardware items, I know all the manufacturers in the kingdom. I know them pretty well, and I try and do exercises with all the manufacturers in the hardware sector. Manufacturing of food products is something different, but in the hardware sector, and all of us are facing the same problem: lack of support from the retailers. So the retailers in our space do not promote anything that is explaining the value chain.
You are highlighting that this industry is shrinking, which is a very sad thing, especially now that the country is all about job creation. But I just want to understand if you have tried working with the Eswatini Investment Promotion Authority to help you with such challenges.
We must be careful not to criticize bodies that are trying to do something because they get upset. But it is very, we do not understand how to pursue value chain. So yes, we work with the Eswatini Investment Promotion Authority, but the kingdom specifically is not proud of whether it is one product they produce or 5. You will not find easily in the country what is made inside this country. You can knock on doors high and low, left and right, all the statistics, all the EPAs, all the youth, it's very unknown. And so we are not starting from a base of knowing what we have in the basket and trying to grow it with a strategy. And I'm trying to get conversations going that understand what kind of manufacturing could be beneficial or applicable to Eswatini. There's certain kinds of manufacturing that I believe would work well in this environment, and there's others that you're living a pipe dream. So because we just don't have the skill base to do them. So we need to establish a basket of possible manufacturing, and then our trade missions and our EPA type work needs to understand when they visit neighbor countries, investment people, that the kingdom is looking for manufacturers in this kind of type of, and so what we tend to do is we take a generalist approach where we say we're looking for investors. Maybe we'll detail it and say manufacturing investors, but we will never get, I've never seen a request for, we are looking for in this sector investors that will turn some of the raw materials we have in the country into other things. Some of the raw materials available in neighboring countries into products. So it's no use starting to make something in Eswatini if there's no raw materials and your raw material source is somewhere far away. So you have to have a plan to what you want to start manufacturing and what the population has got the skills to help you with. Is it highly skilled jobs? Is it low skilled jobs in the manufacturing? What sector? How many people have we got? Is the electricity? There's the structures that are going to help with the promotion and the marketing? So it's a complex matter, and we don't understand it, and we're all guilty of not talking enough about it. That's the press, the newspapers, the bodies. We're talking on a superficial level. We have to get into the detail of what kind of manufacturing can exist in Eswatini.
Government has called upon different businesses, Mr. Adamson, to register for the African Continental Free Trade Area. Have you registered, and do you think this agreement will be beneficial to you as a business?
By way of explaining to you, I was one of the first to register, okay? But unfortunately, most of the people that I talk to that should know that I've registered don't know that I've registered, okay? So I don't know how it's going to help. And my belief is that where I am at the moment, I don't see it will be helping us for the next 5 or 6 or 7 years, because the notion is noble, the idea is good, but on the ground, products going into Zambia, products going into Malawi are all still the same as ours coming from outside. They do not look inside within Africa. When you sit in Malawi and you want to buy something, you don't think, I wonder where I can get it in Africa. You go straight to other areas of the world. So in the north of Africa, AfTA is working. From Kenya up, Algeria, Egypt, they understand AfTA and they are making it work. But in the southern part of Africa, AfTA's got a long way to get before it's going to gain traction. There has to be a lot of work that's going to happen. We kind of believe here, because they've signed an agreement, business will start flowing. It's not that easy.
From everything that you have said, it's clear that this industry is not performing well. How would you want to be supported, especially by government or any other entities?
Government must understand and create policy. So government should be having a national manufacturing policy that says this industry we want to see grow, that industry we want to see continue. We want to have few more factories in this kind of vein. We want to have a few more factories that do this kind of thing. We want to start exporting this. We want to export that. We want to do this. But I must tell you that the appetite to run factories in our region is zero. Zero. There is nobody that wants to come and run factories. Nobody. They're ghosts. You're looking at one now who's got perseverance and determination, but there's not people that are interested in getting into manufacturing in our region.
I want you to give us a comparison. How was it performing 5 years ago? How much was it contributing to the GDP compared to now?
So we probably down to 20% of what we were doing 5 years ago. And that's people's jobs. I mean, there was good 200 people. We're now down to 40 people. Okay, so the assets and the equipment is still here. The knowledge is still here, but we're not finding business. Okay, in the rubber factory, we're sort of hanging on, but in the business we were doing 5 years ago, we've had to diversify into other products to stay in the same place. So we haven't lost numbers of people. We were starting to lose turnover last year and the year before, but we've replaced it with some other product that we found a way to manufacture for somebody. And that has helped us to keep our rubber factory. So there is niches and you can find your ways when you understand manufacturing. But yeah, to sell the product is the problem. To sell the product is the problem.
Unfortunately, Mr. Adamson, we've got 10 minutes on Enterprise Watch, but I promise you that this is not the last time you hear from us. We are going to come back just to find out how the business is performing, having talked to the Minister of Commerce, Industry and Trade, of course.
And in line with that very same conversation, we contacted the Director of Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises at the Ministry of Commerce, Industry and Trade, Mluleki Dlamini, who promised that something will be done to resuscitate the brass and rubber industry in the country.
As a ministry, we are also looking into assisting businesses expand also into the export market. We've seen one of our manufacturers, Exipro, who's also part of the exporters in the country. We are still going to visit that facility and see what challenges they are facing in terms of their domestic distribution and also export. We will be assisting them in every way possible to see that they increase their volumes there for export and also increase their domestic distribution as well, so that they continue to contribute to the economy of Eswatini and through providing jobs and also addressing issues of poverty and also development of skills within this industry. Thank you.
Right, from brass and rubber industry that is not doing fairly well, we want to look at how the markets are doing today. Sanele Sibia joins us virtually. He's our economist. You know him by now. He's going to give us what the market rates are telling us today. Sanele, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Ngumalo, and good afternoon to the viewer. So when we're looking into the US, we can see that the markets really pulled ahead on Wednesday. We saw all record highs with Dow Jones Industrial on 44,000, the Nasdaq on 20,000 in terms of all share volumes, and then the S&P 500 sitting there at 6,000. That's purely because what we're seeing is the tech sector pulling ahead in light of the promise of mega investments coming President Trump mega policy direction. So that's what we are waiting for. And further, what we're seeing is the markets are a bit apprehensive, but the fact that Trump has not come out to state clearly when and how tariffs are going to take effect. So that caution does tell markets that he is trying to balance between inflation and also trying to balance the growth story within the US. So we are still waiting to see how that's going to play out. But we are waiting to hear him speak in the next couple of hours at the World Economic Forum at Davos. So we'll see, we'll get more clarity in terms of how he sees the economy going. So coming into the European market, what we're seeing there's a bit of subdued activity in London, but still at a very high level, at all-time high levels. But what we're seeing is, the UK economy is relatively weak at the current moment. But on the positive side of it, manufacturing losses seem to be on an upsurge within the UK economy. But across Europe, things seem to be going well. In France, they're again really just trying to inch up back to that 8,000 mark, which we saw earlier in the year. That's purely because those political tensions are easing, and we're also seeing that as Germany approaches the new election or the formation of a new election of a new what we call coalition government, things are also looking up there as well. But we are waiting to see if there's going to be any new sources of growth coming out from Germany. Asia again is all on the blue, all on the green, purely because there's that issue around Trump being slow around those tariffs, and we're seeing the mainland inching up to that 3,230 mark, which is yet another all-time high, driven by that by 5% growth target, which China hit in the few days, and we're seeing a bit of trade moving from the Hong Kong region back into mainland, and as we're seeing those declines in Hang Seng. Then again, Johannesburg Stock Exchange, we've seen some losses. It's purely because, we all worried about what is going to happen in terms of the stability of the GNU. We do know there are major corruption allegations against an ANC minister in the presidency. And this was one of the sticking points that the DA did put out to say that if we hear any hints of corruption, we are going to pull out. So as markets wait to see what Trump will be saying in Davos, and as we wait to see how inflation or the interest rate is going to go next week, and with more economic data coming out, but there are a bit of fragilities within the government of national unity. In the domestic front, we have not seen any activity. And then coming into the commodities, we can see gold is still on the 7,555 mark, but losing a bit of ground there purely because we're seeing a stronger dollar in today's trading session, and also that bit of calm around the tariff story is also eating into the gains that gold had made. Oil seems to be going down, as we've been predicting, that as we see more of Trump's policies play out the way we have been hearing the news right now, we should see the price of oil going down back to that 75, 74 mark. So we're standing at 78 today, purely because we are going to drill, or Trump is going to drill, and they are those tensions in the Middle East that seems to be stabilizing, and he's come out to say, to try bring Russia into the table. And then in terms of currencies, I know the Lilangeni is relatively strong, but showing some signs of weakness against all major currencies because of the Trump policies that are in place, and we are waiting to. And with that slow uptake in terms of the tariff policies, the dollar again is gaining a bit of strength, and the same thing with the euro and the Japanese yen. We can see that those actions by the Bank of Japan are actually working to prop up the dollar. Those buybacks are actually working up to prop up the Japanese yen and therefore weakening the Lilangeni against the yen. Thank you, Mr. Nimalo.
Thank you, Mr. Sbi, and thank you to our viewers for staying with us until this far. That marks the end of our Thursday edition of Market View. Have a lovely afternoon. Bye-bye.